everybody, welcome to my sewing room. Last week we were making a little shirt and I just want to continue with that a little bit. We'll get started on the sewing machine and the serger. I did want to point out that when I was showing you how to cut this out, I forgot to tell you to cut out the interfacing, and that's really important to do interfacing. One of the things I remember from when I was a child is my mother would use whatever scrap fabric she had as interfacing, so she didn't have to go buy it. But fortunately, interfacing doesn't cost that much, and we can buy it as an iron-on, so it makes it go in there very easily. So look in your pattern. Usually the collar, the cuffs, and if it has a front pocket, has to be interfaced so it's nice and stiff and it stands up the way we want it to. So I went ahead and I did that. I cut out my, let me see if I can find my pieces. This is the placket that goes down the front, and I ironed the interfacing to the back of it. And I did the same thing with the piece that fits between the collar and the shirt. I can't even think of what it's called. But with that piece and with the collar and the cuffs. So we got everything all ready to go. Now we're going to go to the sewing machine. And I think what I'm going to do is on one shirt, I'm going to just sew the seam and press it open. On the other shirt, I'm going to serge it. So I'll show you how I do both of those things. Okay, so the first thing it says on this pattern to do is to do the stay stitching. And stay stitching is just stitching around the neckline in both of these spots. And that's going to keep it as you go to sew the collar on from the fabric stretching. And it really does make things fit together better when you take just those few minutes and do that stay stitching. So we're going to do the stay stitching. And then the next thing it says to do is to go ahead and fold that pocket over, finish the edge of the pocket first, and then fold it over and then stitch around it so that you get a nice finished pocket. And then we're going to sew that pocket right onto the front. And the pattern piece has a good picture of where that pocket goes, so you get it in the right spot. So let's go ahead and do that first. Okay, so I am ready to go ahead and start sewing the shoulder seams together on this and go ahead and put the pocket on it. And on this pattern, there's two little circles, and I'll try and put a picture in the corner to show you where it is because they're really different than actually a drawing of a pocket. They're just little circles that you're supposed to take your fabric and mark it with. So this shirt has got a black front, and so that if I put it here, I can put a chalk mark right here, or I could just take a pin, which I think I'm going to do. I'm going to just go right here and put a pin here and a pin here, right here. And that is where the pocket on the front of this is going to go. So then I have on both of the shirts I've done the pocket. On this one I serged it because, like I told you, I'm going to serge some of it. So I serged the edge of this one, and then I turned it and folded it over and pressed it, and so it's all ready to go on the shirt. On the other one, I haven't done anything with it yet. And I did put an embroidery on the front of it. This is a little black and white check shirt, so I just thought it would be really fun right on the pocket to put Lightning McQueen on it. So I went ahead and I did that. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this pocket here. But before we do that, we have to finish the edge. So we are going to just very tinily fold up and then fold again the edge. And that will make a nice finished edge. Let's move the pocket pattern out of the way. And this is the way I do most of my rolled edges. I've never really liked a rolled hem foot. It just doesn't seem to do what I think it should do. So just folding it twice and stitching it down does a nice finished edge. So let's turn it to the right side and turn it down again. The pocket pattern has a line that goes right down here that basically is showing you that's the fold line. So you could mark that with chalk as well. Usually all I do is just fold it and say that looks pretty good. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. And then I'm going to sew all the way around with a straight stitch. About 1/4 of an inch, because that's where I'm going to fold it under and stitch it down onto the shirt. my scissors. Sometimes my scissors don't cut. I don't even know why. And I've got some threads here that are hanging where I don't need them. So I'm going to go ahead and trim those off. Now I can take this, and if I fold the edge in and put my thumb in there, I can turn that and make a pretty nice corner of my pocket. That'll make a nice corner. And then I can take it to my iron and turn it down everywhere where I just stitched it and press it really good. And it should end up looking like this one did with the serged edge. Fold it all in, so then I can go ahead and pin it onto the front of my shirt. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I went ahead and I pinned my pocket in place, and it looks like it's good. Now, most sewing machines have a stitch that's in the buttonhole menu that's supposed to be the top part of the pocket. But you actually have to put your buttonhole foot on to do that, so it's not something I normally do. If you look in your book, it will tell you to do that. So it's kind of up to you. What I like to do is I like to sew the pocket on with the straight stretch stitch. And it's going to be on your main menu. And it's on this machine, it's number 105. But I'll show you a picture of exactly what I'm talking about. I've used it before in previous videos. And it just kind of goes back and forth, and it sews it on nice, and it kind of makes a real pretty top stitch. So I'm going to put this over here, put it under, and then we're going to sew this right on the edge as close as I can possibly get. And I didn't tell you this before, but make sure if you do this that you have this absolutely straight and it looks good, because I'll be honest with you, if you use this straight stretch stitch and sew something down and then have to rip it out, you're going to hate me. So make sure you're getting it straight. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I really like the way that pocket came out. It's straight. I did get a little wobbly down here, but I'm not going to stress about that. So let's go ahead and just do the next part, which is putting the shoulder seams on. Here is the back of the shirt, and you can see that stay stitching that I did around the edges to make sure that the neckline stays shaped the way it's supposed to be shaped instead of moving it around and getting all wonky. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to line up my shoulders and go ahead, and I put a pin in there. Each part of the shoulders, you want to pin it on so it's lined up properly. If you cut this out at the correct size, you should be able to do a 5/8 seam allowance. Let's turn this around. Hopefully I got this right. Put one here and one here. And on the other shirt, I went ahead and did the shoulder seams on the serger, which I'll show you in a minute. But this one, we're going to just sew it. And I do not have pinking shears because I just don't usually use them. So if you want to, you could pink the edges of this so that the seam allowance won't fray. So we're going to put this at the 5/8 seam that's on here, right here. I've got a marking on my machine. And I've got this set in the left needle position. Pull the pins out. Don't sew over pins. It's a really bad habit to sew over pins. I don't care how good your sewing machine is. You always are taking a chance if you sew over a pin that the needle's going to hit it. So I just pull them out. I'm going to have to pull this one up just a little bit higher to line it up right. Okay, let's press that open and see what it looks like. So I moved over here to my ironing station. This is where I iron most of my projects, even some of my quilts. I really love these wool mats. They're absolutely wonderful. They hold the heat and they press really nice, and that way I don't have to deal with a great big ironing board. So what we're going to do, oh, and I did have a viewer make a comment once about showing stitches. I'm not sure that it makes that much difference, but this is, so I just want to kind of give you a look so you can see. I've got some threads I have to trim here that it kind of made little loopies, but that's not going to stress me out. But it made a good stitch. You don't want to see any kind of loops. You want to be able to run your fingers across the top and not feel bumps. So that's pretty good tension on there. But now I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to see if I can get this to lay flat. Press this open like this, and then we're just going to go ahead and iron that. And it really does. I remember as a young girl skipping certain parts where I didn't think was necessary, and one of it was pressing seams open. But it really does make your sewing projects come out so much nicer when you press the seams open. So that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to take it and we're going to sew the side seams, because we're going to do inset sleeves. We're going to put those into the shirt, and it's a little bit harder on a small child's shirt, but I know it'll make the sleeves set in there better when you do that. But before we go back to the sewing machine, I just wanted to show you, here's our other little one with the dogs, and I serged the edges on this. So this one, it's completely trimmed off because the serger has a blade, so it's shorter and smaller, and it makes such a nice finished edge on here. But even on this one, I'm definitely going to press this open, and I'm going to do the side seams, and I haven't put the pocket on this one yet, so I will go ahead and put the pocket on that one. Okay, so I sewed the side seams, and I just wanted to quickly show you. This is done, and I did this on the serger, so you can see what a pretty finished edge that is. And the shoulder seams are done, and the pocket is in place, so it looks really nice. There's the pocket on there. Obviously, I have to trim some threads, but that part is finished. And then this one, same thing. I put the pocket on there. And this is the inside seam of the side seam, pressed flat. I have to tell you that I did go ahead and do like a 3-part zigzag on the inside of this, because the more I thought of it, I'm kind of spoiled with my serger, and I don't think about finishing the edges on these. And a long time ago when my kids were little, of course, I never finished the edges, but I did want the edge to be finished. So I did a 3-part zigzag on all the open seams, and you can see all these little threads that are hanging right here. I'm going to go back with my little scissors and cut those off, and with the 3-part zigzag there, I think that will hold the edge of the seam pretty well. We'll see. That looks pretty good too. I really like it. So the next part we're going to do is we're going to do the sleeves. So here's our sleeves. We have 4 of them. There's 2 for the little doggy one and 2 in the check. And you'll notice that on the pattern, it says that you need to put a couple of pleats on here. And then this is where the cuff placket goes. So we're going to do that. And if we look at the pattern, we are at this part right here. Oh, no, we're not. We're over here. So let me see if I can get this over here. So this is the part where we're at right now. So we are going to go ahead and go back to the sewing machine. We're going to cut this open right here. See where it says stitch the stitches, then cut it open, then take that little piece that goes right there and sew that on there. And then we're going to, let's move it over here. We're going to fold that over, and then we're going to sew 2 little pleats in the side of the sleeve, and then we're going to sew the sleeve closed so it makes a tube, and then we'll go from there. So let's go over to the sewing machine and get that part done. Okay, the hardest part of doing Okay, so the hardest part of this is figuring out where to put the camera. And I've been trying to figure out the best way to do this. And I think what I'm going to do is kind of cut it up a little bit and do some close-ups and then some far-aways. That's one of the reasons I don't do a lot of things at the sewing machine, is because I probably don't have the right equipment to do it. But anyway, so I've gone ahead and I've marked this with my friction pins. This is the opening for what's called the continuous lap. I know I call it a placket, but basically that's what it's called, a continuous lap. That's where the cuff is going to open. Then it's got a couple little pleat markings here, so I've marked that as well. And I did it on the back of my fabric simply because the friction pin doesn't show as well on the other side, but I think that's going to work. So we're going to open it up here. I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to cut this open right down the middle of this dart like this. So it will open like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the continuous lap and I'm going to just put it right on the edge here. I always sew these on the wrong side. Something my mother taught me a long time ago. If you sew it on the wrong side and then when you flip it around to the right side and top stitch it, you know that the part that you're watching very closely is going to look nice, and if the back doesn't line up, no one's ever going to see it. So that's just the way I do a lot of binding if I'm going to stitch it instead of hand stitch it. So I'm going to line this up and then I'm going to sew it. And this is the part that is kind of hard to show, but I'm going to do just a regular center needle with the edge of the foot on the edge of the fabric, and I'm going to sew it straight down to where the slit in the fabric stops. And then I'm going to take it and flip it around with my needle down. It's one of the reasons I like a needle down on my sewing machines. And then I'm going to try and open it up and continue it down the other side without sewing a tuck into it. I don't want the needle to go down into any of the part that's folded. And then just go straight down like this. And I'll use my scissor cutter to cut it. Okay, so you can see that what I've done is I've just kind of sewed in a circle around that edge and left this as flat as I possibly could right here. So now we're going to flip it around to the right side, and then you press the seam towards the placket, and then you fold this part down just a little bit and then pull it over this way. So now it's almost like putting a bias tape around the edges of this opening. And I'm going to try and top stitch this just as close as I can possibly get to the edge of this seam so it looks really nice. So I'm going to put it right here. Check where my needle is at. That's just a little bit right there. That looks good. So we're going to do the first side. Right up to where it goes. And then we're going to fold this in. You'll notice I didn't pin it. I just kind of folded as I went. And that way, I don't have pins and all that other stuff in my way. Just keep it looking flat and neat. I could have pressed it down in the right place too, but I think this is going to be just fine. We're going to go straight down like this and stitch it. And then use my scissor cutter. And then, let's trim that. Okay. Then when it folds in, one part's going to go towards the inside of the shirt and the other side's going to fold over right on top of that so that it looks like this. And that's where your cuff is going to go, just like that. So the next part that we're going to do is we're going to put those cuffs, those little pleats in here. So we've got 4 lines. So one line goes to this line here, and I'm actually going to put a pin in there. And then this line is going to go to this one, and we're going to put another pin in there to hold it in place. And then we're just going to do a basting stitch to hold those in place until I go to put the cuff on there. Whoops. Oh, I got both the threads in there. Okay. So let's change our stitch length to 5, and we'll just stitch those down just like that. And cut it. Okay. So I can take the pins out now because that's going to hold. And now we're going to make our cuff. Oh wait, before we make our cuff, we're going to close this up. This is the checkered one. This is the one I'm doing on my serger. So I will probably take it back over to the serger and serge that edge. But right now, let's just close it with a 5/8 seam allowance. So let's just sew. Oh, I still have that at 5.8. I want to turn it back to the regular 2.5. Okay. Okay, so we're going to open this up and probably take it to the iron and open our 5/8 seam allowance. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm not going to press this open. I'm going to serge it. So I'll just leave it the way it is. And I'll show you when we get ready to put the cuff on, what it looks like. But here's my cuff. And I have one side that's got interfacing already ironed on it. The other side does not. So we're going to put right sides together. And we're going to sew around the edge here. Now when I get to this corner right here, I'm ready to pivot. I'm going to put my needle down. I'm going to turn it. I'm going to take one stitch at an angle, just one stitch, and then I'm going to turn it again. And the reason why I want to do that is because when I get ready to turn that corner right there, it'll actually push out better with that one little stitch there. So then a really sharp right angle turn. We're going to take one stitch and then we're going to go this way. And cut it. Obviously my cutter's not working. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to trim this across like this and trim this across like this. Then I'm going to, look at that great big long thread that I have there. Okay. Then I'm going to put my thumb inside of here, push it all the way to the corner, fold this side down, fold this side down, and I'm going to flip it like this. And I'm going to do it again over here. So fold this side down, flip it. Now I have a pretty good corner there. That looks pretty good. And I usually have a corner turner close by, but for some reason I don't know where it is. But I'll tell you what, don't use your scissors because your scissors will push a hole. But like a flat edge screwdriver works pretty good. I'll put it up there. I'm gonna just push that corner out just a little bit. Be careful. You really don't want to accidentally push through your hard work and your stitches. And then we'll take that to the iron and press that down, and then we'll come back to the sleeve and go ahead and put that cuff on. Okay, so I went ahead and I took that over to the serger and I serged it. See what a nice finished edge that makes when it's serged. I just love the finished look of something that has a serged edge. And then we're going to turn it inside out like this. And then when, like I said before, one part of this folds towards the fabric, the side that has the little pleats on it, and one side lays flat like this. And that way, when we go to put them together with a button, it's going to lay flat in here, and it's going to look really nice. So just remember, as you go to put the cuff on, that you want it to do that. And then we're going to, actually, I think this is going to work a whole lot better if I had left it just the way I had it before. inside out, or outside in. So we're going to take this and we're going to fold this part in like this. And then we're going to take our cuff and we're going to lay that right on that edge, right there. And we can put a pin. We're going to sew through the edge. Actually, I'm going to flip it this way because we're going to sew through the edge that has the interfacing. We're going to lay this right up against that edge and we're going to put a pin there. Remember, don't go through both, only go through one. And then we're going to slowly pin this all the way around, and God willing, it's going to fit right. I didn't make it too big or too small. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm back and I got this pinned and it did fit exactly right. So some days things go the way you want them to. So we're going to start stitching on the inside, and this is a little bit tricky because we're trying to go onto the inside of the sleeve. And we're going to sew about a 5/8 seam allowance right here. When I go and put this under my presser foot, I want to pull this pin out right away so that I don't have problems. So I just want to get it right where I want it to be. Right on the edge. Go ahead and pull that pin out, and then we're going to stitch this. I got it part caught. Be really careful. I always pull pins as I go. I think I've said that before. I never sew over a pin if I can help it. And I'm going to go right up to where I have it pinned on the other side, like that. And then I'm going to actually hold my back stitch and back stitch just a little bit to make sure that's good and tight, and use my scissors to cut. Okay, now let's flip this up and turn it inside out. See how that fits so nice there? And then we'll take it to the iron and we'll press everything down. And then before I do the top stitching around the outside of the cuff, I am going to turn this part, I don't know, let's see if I can show this to you. We're going to tuck this seam allowance into the cuff, open the cuff, and tuck this part down like this. And I'm going to hand stitch that because I want it to look really nice and I don't want the stitching to show on the other side. And then I will take it and turn it and I will top stitch all the way around this, or I guess some people would say edge stitch, but it's top stitching and stitch right along this edge so that that lays nice and flat, and we'll have that cuff completely finished and ready to go. Okay, so I am ready to put this sleeve inside the sleeve hole, and what we're going to do is, and I've showed this technique in one of my other videos, but I just think it works fabulous. My friend that I used to work with in San Diego, her name is Peggy, she taught me this and I've used it ever since, and it always works. One of the things that makes me crazy when I'm trying to make a boy shirt is I don't want little gathers around the top so that it looks like a puffy little dress. I want it to lay flat and I want it to look masculine. And that has to do with ease. You have to ease that curve into the opening in the sleeve. So the best way to do that is to make your sleeve, your stitch length, long. And if you have a machine that you can turn off the sensor and not put any thread in there at all, that works as well. It's really great. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put the sleeve under the foot, and I'm going to put my finger right here on the back of the foot, and that's going to hold the fabric from moving. And as it goes under the foot, it will start to almost like pleat itself. And as I go around, it starts getting really small. So on this little boy's shirt, it's hard to get all the way around, but I'm going to go as far as I can, and then I'm going to stop and hit my scissors. And then you can see the way it kind of pleated all up like that, but it's not gathered, it's just pleated. If I pulled on it, it would come apart. But that will make it so that when I go to put it in this opening of my shirt right here, let's turn the shirt this way. I'm going to set it into the opening of the shirt like this, right sides together, and I'm going to pin it in place so that I've got it in the right area. Okay, so I got that all pinned in place. I have the underarm seam on the underarm here, and then the top of the sleeve, I have it here. And you'll notice that I have taken away my extension table because I want to be able to get this into under the foot with the sleeve against the feed dogs. And for years, people used to teach me to do it the other way around so you could ease it in with your fingers. But if I put the sleeve with the pleats against the feed dogs will just naturally ease that in, so I get a nice flat seam. So the hard part is this is a child's shirt, so it doesn't fit over my free arm. I could probably wedge it in there like that, but oh my gosh, that's going to be hard. So I'm not going to try and do that. I'm just going to flatten it out the best I can and then just work it around. So we're going to start at the shoulder seam, and I'm going to grab my sleeve, and then I'm going to just start stitching. And every time I do just an inch or two, I'm going to have to stop and readjust it and move it to keep that where I want it to be. And I remember I told you before, I never sew over a pin. Well, there's going to be probably a couple of, I might sew over a pin when I'm doing this, but I want to keep it flat and keep my edges together. Okay, I've gone around completely in a circle. I've got pins that are all over the counter here. Put them on my pin cushion. And then let's see when we flip it around. So I have a few little puckers right here, but that's also from the stitching that I did before. So when I take this over to my iron and sew it out, I think it's going to come out nice and flat. I think that's going to work really good. So let's take it over to the iron and press it out and see what we end up with. Okay, I'm back at my ironing table, and I have a confession to make. My iron broke. I went to go press out what I had already sewn, and it just wouldn't come on at all. And I know the reason for that is because I forget to turn it off, and sometimes I go to work and this will be on for 24 hours, and that's not good at all. So I bought it, one of those new ones. This is a Singer, and I bought it at my work, and it will turn itself off after half an hour of not being used, and I'm much happier. I know it's going to work. So that is the reason why that I did not press this cuff flat. And you probably noticed that the cuff was not as flat as it should have been if I really wanted it to look nice. So I am going to go ahead now. I've got steam in this new iron, and I'm going to press the heck out of this so that it comes up nice and flat and looks the way I want it to look. And then I will take it to the sewing machine, and I will top stitch this so that it makes a really pretty cuff and looks nice. So we'll go ahead and finish that up, and I'll do the stitching on the inside like I told you before, the hand stitching. So the other thing I want to do, this is called a sewing ham, and I know I've showed it to you before. I think at one of the other videos, I made the comment that I couldn't find it, and I had to really look and stick and figure out where I'd stashed it, but I did find it. So now what I want to do is I want to just kind of slip this sleeve over the end of the sewing hem, because I don't want anything that's going to make this sleeve look fluffy, like a little girl's dress with puffy sleeves, because this is for a little boy and he's not going to like that. So I'm just going to press the end of this out as best I can. Not only will it take out anything that might have accidentally gotten a little fluffy on there, but it'll also shape it around that curve, so that I will have a boy's shirt and not a girl's shirt. So we're going to pull this part down. You could do this over a pillow or something. It would work good probably too. But that kind of helps a little bit. So I end up, let's see, let's look at this. So this looks like the top of a boy's shirt, and that's what I wanted it to look like. It came out really nice. I have a really nice cuff here. I'll put a button and a buttonhole on it. I'll do the other sleeve, and I will do it the other two sleeves on the other shirt. I also have another confession to make. When I first started this, I said I'd do one just sewing and one just serging, and I got confused. And you probably noticed it from watching the beginning of the video that I was supposed to be serging the other one, and I said I'm going to serge this one. So let's just face it, doing it on a serger is so much nicer. There's parts of this that is stitched and with the zigzag on the seams, and there's parts of it that I did on the serger. And the other one's probably going to be kind of mixed up like that too. But at least we got a little bit of both in this. So I think that's all we're going to do on this video. You'll see the sleeves done on it. When we come back for the next video, I'm going to do the collar. The collar is probably the hardest part. There's a lot of pieces to that. And then I will also show you how to put that closing placket with the buttonholes on it, and then we'll have a couple of really nice finished shirts. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've got questions, go ahead and make comments. Ask me questions. I can go back and show you another part. Hit that subscribe button and the like, thumbs up. I'd appreciate it, and I will see you next week. Bye.